Deadpool and Wolverine is the biggest Marvel hit in a minute, so why did this multiverse-spanning adventure strike such a nerve when others didn't? LFG. In its opening weekend, Deadpool and Wolverine shattered records. The film started out with a $38.5 million gross from preview screenings alone, breaking the record for an R-rated movie. That strong start was the precursor to an enormous opening weekend. The film took home $205 million at the domestic box office and an additional $233.3 million internationally, for a total opening weekend gross of $438.3 million. That's a new record for R-rated film openings, and it even makes it into the top 10 all-time for any film, landing at the number 8 spot. The film seems primed to top the all-time R-rated box office rankings, though it still has a ways to go. While it may have been hard to predict such a historic opening, all signs were pointing to Deadpool and Wolverine making a bold entrance. Media analyst Carrie Bible told Looper ahead of opening weekend, "This film has such great buzz and people love both Reynolds and Jackman. Tracking is high and fan enthusiasm is as well. Watch for this to have a huge opening." And that's exactly what happened.
Let's go!
Deadpool and Wolverine has generated more excitement than most other superhero movies have in years. A survey conducted among moviegoers by Fandango in December 2023 placed the threequel as the #1 most anticipated film of 2024, scoring ahead of Dune Part 2, Beetlejuice 2, and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, to name just a few. A big part of that anticipation is the film's unique status within the MCU. It's officially part of the Marvel Studios franchise, but it's also a follow-up to the first 2 Deadpool movies, which were made prior to Disney's acquisition of 20th Century Fox. That quickly got fans of the old X-Men movies excited, as this is the closest we've gotten so far to the MCU introducing its own version of Marvel's mutants, aside from a version of Professor X appearing in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
I shall miss you, my friend.
In an era of the MCU many have described as lackluster or directionless, Deadpool and Wolverine is a clear, brash installment. Yes, it plays on nostalgia, but pulls from a deeper well than some of the other recent Marvel films. Hugh Jackman stated outright that 2017's Logan would be the end of him playing Wolverine. When the film came out, the Australian actor had been playing the part for the better part of 2 decades. Logan itself was marketed as his official send-off, and it wound up being the most critically acclaimed of all the X-Men movies.
I really thought I was done. I was at peace with it.
While some would have preferred for the character to never return after such a fitting finale, it's hard to deny the box office appeal of such a beloved performance getting one more turn in the spotlight. Giving Jackman the comic-accurate yellow costume, something he never got in the Fox movies, was just icing on the cake. Logan grossed over $600 million worldwide and remains the 9th highest-grossing R-rated movie ever. Deadpool and Wolverine is definitely on pace to top it. For many fans, seeing that R-rated, no-filter, bloody-clawed Wolverine one more time was a dream come true. Jackman still carries all his star power, and his chemistry with Ryan Reynolds makes for a great buddy movie dynamic. Analyst Carrie Bible told Looper, both Reynolds and Jackman have proven track records at the box office, and their combined star power here should make for a powerful combination. 2 of the movies that rank ahead of Logan on the top-grossing R-rated movies ever are Deadpool and Deadpool 2, which occupy the 3 and 4 spots behind Joker and Oppenheimer. Both films grossed over $780 million at the global box office, totaling more than $1.5 billion. Deadpool 3 may surpass them both. The previous 2 Deadpool films also earned high critical praise, and of course the fans love them. The Deadpool films shook up the superhero genre, showing that an irreverent style aimed at older moviegoers can still lead to massive financial success. The fact that that legacy is separated from the recent MCU entries in people's minds may have aided Deadpool and Wolverine in the long run. Media analyst Carrie Bible said, "I would say the only challenge this film faces is superhero fatigue. Marvel was once invincible, but they've had several disappointments and even misfires at the box office. There is red-hot buzz, so this new film should easily turn things around." It surely helps that both the Deadpool franchise and Logan delivered very different tones than the usual comic book movie fare. That may be why the superhero fatigue phenomenon has left the latest MCU film seemingly unscathed. Shaking up the usual formula inevitably draws eyes. As Disney's foremost franchise, the MCU has always been kept under pretty strict guidelines to remain family-friendly. The franchise didn't drop its first F-bomb until Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 in 2023, despite the fact that PG-13 movies are usually allowed 1.
There's a button under the handle. Press that in.
Okay. Now what?
Open the door.
The films have also frequently been criticized as prudish, avoiding any semblance of sensuality in the larger interest of maintaining the Disney brand image. That rigidity has loosened here and there. The Netflix Marvel series were pretty violent, and the Disney Plus series Echo brought a more visceral feel into the mix. Even with those previous strides, though, the release of a full-on R-rated movie is absolutely the furthest that Marvel Studios has strayed from its kid-friendly roots. Risks in brand strategy often pay dividends, as Deadpool and Wolverine has shown. However, it's unlikely that this will dramatically shift the business model for the studio. Deadpool and Wolverine is rated R for a variety of reasons, most of which are uniquely relevant to the two title characters. However, if the film continues to blow the doors off, it's possible that Disney might continue to explore other projects for mature audiences going forward. Ever since Disney acquired 20th Century Fox, the X-Men have loomed on the horizon of the MCU. We've gotten bits and pieces, like Stewart's brief return as Professor X, and the X-Mansion in the mid-credit sequence of the Marvels. And of course, the immense popularity of X-Men '97 revitalized excitement for the Marvel's mutants. Deadpool and Wolverine fans those flames of X-Men nostalgia higher than ever, bringing back characters from the Fox films like Laura from Logan, aka X-23, and Pyro. X-Men villain Cassandra Nova also appears for the first time on the big screen. While it was unlikely that the movie was ever going to officially open a whole new X-Men series, getting all these big names associated with the mutants was enough to garner excitement among fans. A lot of Deadpool and Wolverine can be seen as a snarky but sincere celebration of that former franchise and the many actors who made it so successful. Fantastic Four is the next big comic addition to the MCU, but more mutants are coming eventually. Feige told Discussing Film on July 26th, "Our animated series X-Men '97 was sort of the first taste of people reuniting with the X-Men mythology and that storyline. The response to that series just further excited us about how to bring the soap opera and the saga of the mutants to the MCU." It was clear from the start what kind of movie Deadpool and Wolverine would be, overflowing with Easter eggs and cameos. Throwing Deadpool into a franchise as expansive as the MCU just gave him so many more walls to break.
I'm the Messiah. I am Marvel Jesus.
In addition to former X-Men actors reprising their old roles, Deadpool and Wolverine brings in tons of other once and future Marvel actors. Wesley Snipes plays Blade again, Chris Evans plays Johnny Storm again. Disney even brought Jennifer Garner back to play Elektra Nachos from the Daredevil and Elektra movies from the early 2000s. The cameos just keep coming. In addition to the familiar faces, Deadpool and Wolverine is packed with little pokes at the MCU itself. Hugh Jackman's starring role in the X-Men franchise is a key plot point, and the Void, where most of the movie takes place, is loaded with memorabilia from previous Marvel movies. Snipes told Entertainment Weekly of his return, "I did not think it was possible. I didn't think we would be able to pull it off. I didn't think that Marvel was into it. Disney was into it." Since 2013, Marvel Studios has put out multiple movies every year. With the exception of 2020, of course, when 0 MCU movies were released due to theater closures during the COVID-19 pandemic. At times, that rapid-fire release schedule has played to the franchise's benefit, building momentum in the lead-up to event-style crossover films. Ever since Avengers Endgame, though, the pace of MCU releases has felt more overwhelming than exciting. There hasn't been an Avengers movie since 2019, and the lack of unified narrative direction has created confusion for casual moviegoers. A lot of the films released over the last few years have been new one-offs, and the onrush of Disney Plus shows has only made things more complicated. Fewer movies doesn't necessarily mean better movies, but the fervor around Deadpool and Wolverine is hard to ignore. There are a lot of different reasons why the new movie is having so much success at the box office, but focus is surely one of them. Lots of people simply don't want there to be so many Marvel movies. Going to see them feels like homework. But if there's only one, well, that's a much easier sell. On-screen chemistry is great, but in this era of viral marketing campaigns and celebrity Instagram feeds, a little off-screen chemistry doesn't hurt either. Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman have been friends for years, and they've often made that friendship public via various promotional campaigns and other projects. In the case of Deadpool and Wolverine, it especially adds to the story that the two actors first met on the set of X-Men Origins Wolverine. Reynolds told People of being on that set, "Honestly, it left the biggest impression on me. I thought, man, if I'm ever even remotely lucky enough to be in Hugh Jackman's position in life, these are the lessons you want to get into your DNA as soon as humanly possible." Since then, they've kept up a playful banter online, jabbing at one another in interviews and appearing in commercials for each other's business ventures.
Ryan and I recently called it a truce in our social media war, and we promised to make ads for each other.
Yeah, we sure did.
Some might see this kind of public celebrity friendship as a simple PR maneuver, but it's clear that the two men are genuinely good friends. The ribbing relationship that they've played up over the last decade has translated well to the Deadpool and Wolverine press tour, generating additional buzz off of the stars' long-standing real-life dynamic. Plus, for longtime fans, it's just fun to see their two X-Men characters get a redemption arc after their 2009 blunder. Of all the Disney Plus shows that Marvel Studios has put out over the last few years, Loki ranks highly. It was the most watched MCU series on the streaming platform as of June 2023, according to Statista, and it's regularly ranked right alongside WandaVision as the franchise's best Disney Plus showing. The fact that Loki remains the only MCU Disney series to get a second season is another testament to its success. With its timeline-fixing focus, Loki is about as central of a story to connect to as the MCU has. It introduced much of the timeline lore that has driven the so-called multiverse saga, and it's that lore that Deadpool and Wolverine plays on most of all.
Your little cinematic universe is about to change forever.
For all the praise they received, fewer casual moviegoers are likely to be familiar with the ins and outs of Hawkeye or the Moon Knight series. But since Loki has been so successful, Deadpool 3 is able to lean on it in a way that audiences understand. The Void, the TVA, Alioth, the Sacred Timeline, multiverse variants, all of these ideas started in Loki, and they drive the plot of Deadpool and Wolverine as well. It's about as much cohesion as a movie has had with a show in the MCU of late, and it's likely played a role in the massive crowds that are turning out for Deadpool 3. The success of Deadpool and Wolverine is great news for the MCU, but it won't be so easy to translate to the rest of the MCU. For one, this is theoretically the end of a trilogy, even if Deadpool does pop back up in future projects. Even if he does, though, this isn't a central story to the franchise, nor is it a major pillar of the current saga. If anything, it's a comedic side story. Its success calls to mind Marvel's last big hit, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which also didn't have much to offer the larger franchise. The one big potential impact of Deadpool and Wolverine doing so well is Disney greenlighting more R-rated Marvel projects. Disney CEO Bob Iger has already said that the company will continue exploring that kind of content at Marvel Studios, both with Deadpool and other characters. There's certainly a lot of rich material to pull from more adult-oriented comic stories. With the recent news that Robert Downey Jr. will be returning to the MCU to play Doctor Doom in 2026's Avengers Doomsday, the series seems to be recentering around the Fantastic Four, at least for now. Thunderbolts and Captain America Brave New World are also on the way in 2025. It remains to be seen then if the studio can keep up the box office momentum after Deadpool and Wolverine.